Cool, great. This video is super special. It is a part of a collaborative effort that is called the Thanks for Watching Art Video Hop. This is the third video hop done. It's put together by an art group that I belong to on Facebook and also here on YouTube called the Creative Arts Collaboration. And it's a bunch of YouTubers who create art content. So we need to support one another. We also need to promote the whole very idea of watching art on YouTube. I love to do it. You probably do too if you're already watching this, and I would encourage you to check out the links in the description box below for all of the videos that are part of this hop. So this time we had a theme. It was a challenge, and the challenge was to look at the videos from the previous hop, choose one that we are inspired by, and do our own video that is our interpretation inspired by one of the videos in the previous hop. So I did that, and I chose a video by a lovely, lovely, lovely woman from Greece. Her name is Aristi Moorjackie. She is very active on YouTube, and she does a lot of paper crafting and art journaling and bookmaking and that sort of thing. I encourage you to check her out. There is a link below to that video and all of the other videos for people who participated in this hop, not only the videos they made for this challenge, but also the videos that inspired them. So there's lots and lots and lots of things for you to watch. Go watch them. But before you do, watch this one. Aristi made a paper embellishment that can be used for anything in a mixed media project or card making or scrapbooking or any time you need an embellishment. Hers was a heart, and it was a multi-layered. Mine is a leaf, so I made this one. It's got a few layers and some dimensional gloss on it for additional layers. I also made a second one in a smaller size to go along with this, and I'm already beginning to have some ideas about what the project will be that this will be used on. So come along with me and let's go through the whole process of how this was created together. So for my materials, I started out with a foam stamp that I had of the leaf shape that I wanted. I put that on my scanner and I scanned it into Photoshop, and then once I had the image in there, I went ahead and reduced it 20% and then made some copies. So there's two at 20% smaller, and then I made 20% smaller, 20%, 20%, 20%. I don't know if I'm going to use all 5 sizes. I wasn't sure what they were going to look like. I wasn't sure how the project was going to go, and I made a couple of sets so that in case I mess up in my cutting skills anywhere along the way, I'll have some backups. So those are my templates that I'm going to cut out using 2 pairs of scissors. I have a regular pair of craft scissors, and then I have a special pair of scissors that's just meant for what's called fussy cutting, and that's going to help me get a precise line in these little edges here. And I'm going to use these papers. I've got a few papers here that are some jelly plate monoprints that I've done, and there is another video that talks about that process. If you've never done jelly plate printing before, gel press printing, it is so much fun and so addictive. So I saved these specifically to use as backgrounds and for other kinds of projects. I'm also going to add a couple of layers. This is just a cardstock. It's a very nice linen textured cardstock. And then this was just from a pad of tags that I had that has a leafy pattern on it. So those are going to be my layers, at least some of them will. And then to connect those layers together, I have ready 2 mounting tapes. They're foam with adhesive backing, and I've got them in 2 different sizes and thicknesses. I don't want this to get too bulky, so I don't know yet what I'm going to use. If I don't want that much dimension, I just have some craft tape nearby. For distressing the edges, I'm going with my complementary color. This is a Ranger Distress ink in aged mahogany. And I am considering for my top layer adding some dimension with this gloss gel, so that is on hand. And then for my little embellishment, I have these little stickers that are flowers. My belief is that leaves dream of flowers. So this leaf embellishment is going to be dreaming of a flower, and then for the very center of the flower, we'll see which color I choose. I have this tiny, tiny, tiny little flower brad, and I'm going to put that right in the middle of whichever flower I choose. And that is the plan. We're going to get started cutting out our shapes. So I've rough cut my templates using my larger scissor, and this is a pair of Frisker's non-stick scissors. And in doing that, and I'm looking at how my shapes turn out, I learned a couple of things. One is that the round edge on the bottom of this leaf isn't going to work well as I graduate. So by the time I did the third one, you'll see, hopefully you can see, that I cut it a little bit sharper so it would lay in here without sticking out on the end. And I'm about to do the same thing with this one. Then I'm going to go in with my smaller scissor, and I'm going to put a link to this pair of scissors in my description box because it's amazing if you have to do some very intricate detail work. I'm going to go in and snip out these edges so that my templates are complete. The other thing that I decided as I was doing this is that 3 layers is going to be enough for this embellishment. I'm going to do a second embellishment that's going to be smaller, and I think these will make a very nice set together. A couple things to know when you're doing cutting. Always use a scissor that's comfortable in your hand because your hands will cramp and fatigue fairly quickly. The other thing is not to grip too tight. Don't hold your hand tightly. Let it be loose. And keep your scissor wide. Don't always just be using the little end here unless you need it. So give yourself a lot of room to work. And the best tip I ever learned is that when you're cutting, don't rotate the scissor, rotate the thing that you're cutting. And in that way, you'll have a lot more control over what you're doing. So you see my speech gets a little bit stilted when I'm cutting because I'm concentrating. But I'm going to rotate this leaf until I get where I want to get. Let's do another one. It also increases your visibility so you can see where you're working. Of course, I don't need to tell you that you want to have the best possible lighting when you're doing this. Now, the video that I was inspired by to do this did a simple heart. So there wasn't nearly as much work involved, but I always like to challenge myself. Especially when I'm trying something new. It's like a sickness. I don't like to try something simple when I'm trying something for the first time. I like to come out of the gates really giving myself a challenge. But, you know, within reason, because I originally had a flower stamp. I already put it away, or I'd show it to you, that I was going to do along with this, and it was kind of like a mum, so it was a very fringy kind of flower that would have involved a ridiculous amount of cutting, and then I would have had to do that, you know, 3, 4, 5 times in order to get my graduated layers, and, you know, I gave myself a sanity check. Okay, so that template's ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them, and then we'll come back and actually start applying those templates to our papers, and we'll cut from there. All right, I've got all my templates cut out. Here are my 2 itty-bitty ones. I'm going to set those aside for right now, and I'm going to work on these. And because these are larger, I'm choosing my 2 heavier papers to cut these out. I just think it's going to be a lot easier. And then in the middle, I'm going to put this contrast. So those are going to be my layers. So let's go ahead and get started with this one. Now, bear in mind, I am doing this for the first time. I'm going to look for, you know, I really like this over here, so I'm going to try to include that in my layer. I want those colors in there, so I'm going to do it like this. And I'm going to figure it out as I go. So the first thing I'm going to do is rough cut. And I apologize for my sniffles. There have been a number of bugs going around lately. I was just helping my mom get through some surgery. She had a hip replacement, and so I was in hospitals and rehab centers, and then I'm just going to hold on to these layers to try to keep them as aligned as possible, and it looks like I'm going to need to realign from time to time. And I'll cut out my shape. So now I'm coming back in with my fussy cutting scissors, and I'm going to do the fine tuning. These scissors are really great for getting in that tiny little point in the corner. If you want to do a simpler shape, please be sure and check out the description box. This was inspired by a heart-shaped embellishment, and the link to that video and that lovely artist, Aristi, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, she did it first. She did it a lot simpler. So please go check her out and support her. The whole reason we do these collabs is so that you guys can find out about more great art on YouTube, and we can support each other and support the arts. So go check her out. But please finish watching this before you do that. All right, the first one is done. So that is what my first layer is going to look like. I'm going to come in with my second layer. And so once these are finished being cut out, I'll come back and show you what those layers look like together. I've got all my shapes cut out, and now I'm going to distress the edges with my Distress ink. This is from Ranger Tim Holtz, Aged Mahogany. Finger sponge. And I'm just going to go right around the edges here. I don't want to obscure my design, but I do want to give it a little bit of an aged vintage look. If you do paper crafts, you're probably intimately familiar with this technique. Now these layers, you know, there's only a 20% difference in them, so we don't really want to go too deep in, because I do want those, when I lay this on top, I still want the original pattern to show through a little bit, so I'm staying super close to the edge. This one may not need so much because we're already in that color range. Just the edges. This helps the layers stand out from one another as well. See how they pop more than they did a minute ago? And then of course this layer is going to be on top, so I can go a little crazier with it if I want to, or not if I don't. And it's looking, from the way I'm dealing with things here, that perhaps I do. Let's give it a little more personality. That's going to be my first set. A bit more, so I'm just going to leave that one alone. We're done with that. Before I stick my layers together, I want to put my embellishment on top of the first layer. I'm going to put a brad through it, so I want to accomplish that first. So I need to, this is just a little sticker, and I went with my complementary color for that one. And now I've got this little brad I want to put right through the center here. So I've got a little awl, and I've got a very thick book, like a telephone book. This is a catalog. I want to put a hole right where the little center of the flower is. And so using a book like this for something like that helps get the hole in place without ruining any surfaces or doing any damage. Hopefully that's going to make it easy for me to get my brad through, and it did. And I'll secure that in place here, adjust it so that the petals are where I want them to be. And now that layer is ready for assembly. For this one, I'm going to want I got another tiny little brad. This one is green. I shouldn't need to poke a hole. First, let me just, because this is just thin paper, so I should be able to push this right through and get that one ready. I want a little more texture and I want a little more gloss. So before I put the layers together, I'm going to add, this is Mod Podge Glossy. It's pretty stinky. It's stinkier than the other Mod Podges, but I'm going to go ahead and put a layer on all but the top layers, because I'm going to do a 3D glossy accents later on. So I'm just going to go ahead with my little craft mat here that's going to help me keep my work surface neat, and add a layer. This is going to make them a little bit stronger as well as a little glossier. I want to put a nice even layer, fairly thin. I don't think I'm going to do multiple layers. We'll see what they look like when they dry, which for one layer shouldn't be very long. And then this is for my second one, my smaller embellishment. So these are dry. They really only took a couple of minutes, and I helped them along with a heat gun, which also allowed me to get the initial curl out. And I'm ready to put these together. So I'm going to take my second layer and turn it over, and then I have these adhesive foam squares. They're 1/8 inch thick, and that's about as thick as I would want to go. I'm going to try to get one right up in the corner here, as close to the tip as possible. Just press that down. And 3 of these ought to do it. So I'm just going to peel off these backings. And I want to take care to align my layer right where I want it before pressing down. Now, having done this, I don't know that I want this embellishment to really be any thicker than that. So for this layer, I'm not going to use these squares again. I'm just going to use a little bit of craft tape to stick this right on top. And then I'm going to go back in later and secure that little stem. Next for this layer is I'm going to put some dimensional gel on the top. But before I do that, pardon my cough, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this. And I think I'm going to do that just with one of these squares. And I'm going to do that on a wing and a prayer, folks. It's an experiment. Pull off the backing. Whoops. Discard the backing, even if it doesn't want to be discarded. And I've got some Mod Podge on my bottom layer here, but not the top, because I am going to put some dimensional gel on this. I actually really like that a lot. And this has a fairly precise tip. I don't want to go over my flower, so I'm going to try to guide the gloss around that. And it'll do a little settling. Once you have it in place, you can push it a little bit. I see it is going to go over my flower, so I'm going to choose to be okay with that. I can manipulate it a little. I only want my first layer, so I'm not actually squeezing the product right now. I'm just encouraging it away where it's super thick before I start applying more. Because I know that it is going to settle. I don't apply more until I know where it's going. Also, working on a fairly level surface is important. I know my tabletop is level, and I'm just using I like to use vintage plates and things and cups in my studio. I used to deal in that on eBay, and it just kind of makes me happy to have those things around. So I'm going to apply a little more now and go down this stem. I'm sure that'll add some of the strength that I was looking for. And again, I just stop squeezing when I've got about 3/4 of what I want, because I know I can spread it a little and I don't want to overdo it. You can always come back and add more, but it's really difficult to take it away. Okay, I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm going to come back and rescue my second one. I see I need one more drop here. Glare is actually your friend when you're working with this, so you can see if there are any thin spots. I also want to make sure that this stays separated and doesn't adhere. Okay, let's do this one. Well, these are still drying, and they probably will be doing that until tomorrow, but I'm going to call them completed. Let me see if I can show you a little bit of the dimension here. So the gloss is drying on top. I don't want to move it around too much in case it's still fluid enough to slide around. But you can see that this will have some dimension. It's nice and strong. This little edge I'm no longer worried about. And I think that these are going to be really nice on either a card or a mixed media project. I think I know what I'm going to do with them, but it's a secret. I want to thank you so much for watching this video and encourage you once again to check out the description box for the link to the video that was the inspiration for this one, as well as the links to all of the other fabulous art videos that were a part of this hop. It will keep you amused and entertained and out of trouble and off the streets for hours on end. I would also love it if you would like this video if you liked it. I would love to hear from you. Comment, comment, comment. Please consider subscribing if you have not already. We do art videos. We also do cooking videos around here. And there are some exciting things coming up that you will not want to miss. So subscribe now. Press the little notification bell. Ding, ding, ding. So you will know when there are new videos. And you won't miss a thing. Check out some more videos while you're here. And I will see you next time.